If there's one thing I learned from this first pass at cities, it's that this is an impossibly huge subject. It absolutely cannot be done in one video. I doubt it can be done in 10. Think of this video as a stake in the ground, a pin we'll be coming back to many times. This video series is all about opening up the visual development process, so allow me to open up where I'm going. If you've been following from the beginning, you know that my goal is to create a Dead Gods graphic novel. In order to reach that goal, I'm building towards a design document. The idea is to create a significant body of work that I can distill it down into a list of unifying principles. I'll then be able to apply those principles to anything and everything. A setting like Dead Gods is huge, and there are many aspects of it that will have significant art and story repercussions. A design document helps to put some reins on a project that would otherwise be far too unwieldy. Each of the videos I've done so far acts as a step towards finding those unifying principles. Everything I've done so far may change, but if it comes to that, my hope is to have shown the work thoroughly enough that most people will agree that the changes were the right call. That said, I'm dipping my toe into the subject of cities, starting with Tubul-Kans. I want everything in Dead Gods to be designed with purpose. Cities shouldn't be cookie-cutter patterns, built with prefab houses and towers, walls. Each city is built to avoid local problems and take advantage of local resources. Centuries ago, Tubul-Kan captured an island in a lake in a valley. It's a highly advantageous position for reasons that are obvious. The natural moat keeps most predators and enemies at bay and provides a constant source of water. The mountains make it difficult for large forces to approach directly. The rivers expand their reach. By limiting land access to a single bridge, they can focus a smaller amount of energy on its defense. Tubul-Kan's sacred forge is never allowed to die. Only kings and other so-called deities can afford the smith god's handiwork, but his army of acolytes, servants, and worshippers have become the industrial center of the world. They sacrifice to him, learn from him, and produce for him. This means that most metalwork of any quality comes from this one city. With river access and a well-crafted weapon hiding behind every brick, trade has been able to flourish. The markets here are so well stocked, most inhabitants of the Smith City never have to leave, unless they're craving smoke-free air. The surrounding valley was a massive benefit for a time, as the forests could be used to fuel Tubul's sleepless industry. It's feasible that they may have started a forest industry, replanting trees to use as a renewable fuel source, but their trading economy grew so powerful, it was cheaper to simply import more fuel from surrounding kingdoms. Tubul-Kan performs his ceremonies in his workshop temple at the highest point of his island. I've hung out with blacksmiths in their workshops and watched them in action. It's like magic. Lumps of glowing hot metal transformed into beautiful and useful shapes through expertly applied violence. With his centuries of experience, watching Tubul-Kan at work would inspire awe in anyone, and worship in most. In the earlier video about life on the fringes, the sparks of one of my future project principles flashed for a moment. In reworking the sauropod hut, I realized that I'll enjoy creating this project a lot more if I focus more attention on artistic expression than practicality. However, that's easier said than done. I still want the designs of Dead Gods to be believable, and artistic expression, well, it requires you to be artistic. There's a frustrating truth that must be accepted. The best car designers are people who constantly draw cars. The best robot designers are people who constantly draw robots. The best architecture illustrators are the people who constantly draw architecture. It's so easy to be inspired by the incredible, hard-earned work that people are doing, and to think, yeah, I'll just do it like that. Only, you can't do it like that. That is a direct result of years of study and practice. There's a saying that a smart character in a story can only be as smart as the writer. Well, a comic about an artistic civilization can only be as artistic as its artist. The best you can do is try to figure out what your project really needs, and practice that stuff enough that you start to build up a sufficient level of confidence with the material. That's ultimately what this stage represents. I'm starting to think about what kind of architecture my project might need and to build up confidence with the subject matter. I like the idea of houses made from massive stones, vibrated into a perfect fit, with beams, thatching, weaving, and other techniques incorporated into it. At a high level, I'm trying to find shapes that feel interesting but believable. This one is probably my favorite. It has solid stone foundations, but they're not perfectly level, so you can still create some interesting layouts. I like the idea of creating multi-story structures with heavy beams. It opens up a lot of opportunities to create interesting silhouettes. There's also a ton of potential to decorate those beams with wildly varied carvings. The climate of Dead Gods will be almost entirely tropical. The atmosphere is dense with moisture. Walls serve mostly defensive purposes rather than protecting from the elements. This means that I can lean more on sturdy woven hangings, tapestries, hanging beads, whatever else might be appropriate. Flat rooftops feel ancient. Could I get away with arches and domes? Well, yes, in some cases I'll make the attempt. But generally speaking, a flat roofline harkens back to ancient Greek, Mesopotamian, even ancient South American architecture, and tells our brains this is very, very old. To test it out a bit, I drew up a little cutaway of a walled town. Built with its back against a cliff, this barely more than a fortress town has built a humble yet sturdy wall to keep dragons out. It has the added benefit of keeping criminals and rivals out as well, but that's a distant second to giant monsters. As was common with ancient walled cities, many houses have been built against the wall itself. Against the cliff, a couple of large stone foundations have been added. These create tiers that can expand the usable footprint of the town, but they also provide defensible retreats in case the outer wall is ever compromised. Their humble temple sits at the highest point. So, I've done a first pass at Tubul-Kan's smithing city, and I've broken ground in the search for some architectural design principles that can be used going forwards. To round out this first attempt at cities, I wanted to try something a little bigger. A more substantial urban center, something big enough that one of the 200 watchers might occasionally call it home. For maximum drama, I set it on the edge of a tall cliff high above a river valley. Tiered farming is a great way to turn a landscape into dramatic graphic design, so of course I had to go for that. For the central temple, it was time to officially start pouring on the Art Deco reference. This is like an extreme ziggurat inspired by early 20th century illustrations of skyscrapers. Building extreme verticals like this is a way to imply the sophistication of the civilization's technology. I built a simple model in Blender to quickly find the proportions I liked and make sure my perspective was going to work. A drawing like this is more about figuring out the city's relationship to the landscape and the impression it makes from a distance. Sketching out simple buildings at this scale is fun, but it makes me want to zoom in and waste a couple hundred hours figuring out every little detail. I think that's a good sign, as I want it to feel inviting, or at least intriguing. I added some sparing embellishments to the temple. Another design principle that's just beginning to coalesce is the idea of creating large areas of negative space with very small touches of high-frequency detail. I'll explore more of that concept as we go, but I think that it will help to emphasize the artistic confidence of the people of this world, while also forcing me to design everything more thoughtfully. Another principle that I think will be important is leaning hard on the figure. To demonstrate the high level of artistic competence of these civilizations, it'll be good to lean on impressive representations of people, creatures, and the things that are more difficult to categorize. Here, the massive cliff face has become a canvas for some enormous sculptures. Figures help to bring a location to life and provide another great way to imply a ton of story. For the color stage, it was absolutely critical to underlight the central temple. In many of the old Art Deco architectural renderings, the skyscrapers are brilliantly lit by streetlights from below. I wanted to borrow some of that feeling. Whether from fires or electric lights or a combination, at this distance, doesn't really matter. I want it to look ominous and powerful. Cities like this offer humanity a refuge from the dangers of the wilds. From far off, the warm glow of the lights, the high walls, the thriving culture may look like an enticing reprieve from being hunted by everything. But of course, the shipwright knows that venturing into places like this is simply trading one kind of danger for another. You can help this project. Click the buttons, leave a comment, go to my website, buy a book or a print, follow me on stuff, sign up on Patreon. Thank you all so much for the support you've already shown. It's been overwhelming, and a special thank you to my Dragon Tier patrons. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.